Hey everybody, it's Professor Snart here checking in. Since the unit that we're moving into now is, I think, relatively straightforward, at least conceptually, I'm not going to walk us through a screenshot of it. I'll talk a little bit about it here, but I figured I would sort of be on camera to introduce myself at least kind of visually, and you can see my super messy office as I'm looking at it in my own screen here. It's like even worse than I thought. I guess it's good that my back is always to that side of it. Okay, so our course. I'm recording this on Thursday, October 4th. It's a beautiful fall day out there. We are now then just finished up, looking at due dates here, just finished up Unit 4, kind of our look at sonnets across Units 3 and 4. Hopefully you appreciate it or understand that that while this course is like a sort of literary analysis course, it's still really productive, I think, to actually be sort of doing some creative writing as well, and we can learn a lot about a form or a particular poem or a poet by creative writing just as much as we can by writing like a traditional essay. So having said that, then Unit 5 kind of moves us into a more traditional analytical project, basically a comparative essay, with a couple of wrinkles. So just looking at our unit here, we have some new readings to do, again just kind of exposing us to a range of poems, some old, some newer, some from kind of locally, others, you know, from, what do we have here? Wales represented, England represented, some contemporary stuff, older stuff. So again, they're not really related to each other necessarily, but they're hopefully representative of a wide variety of time periods and places and authors, but also styles. You'll notice that there's lots of difference in the sort of use of language in each of the poems too. So just read them. Some you'll like, hopefully all that you'll like, but some will maybe be more compelling than others to you. That's totally okay. And then the assignment then is to pick just one of the poems from our unit here and compare it to a song that you know and that you like. So don't just look for, like, pick randomly one of the poems and then kind of like Google some musical connection to it. It really, the assignment is meant to be more about connecting what we study in the class to something that you're interested in your real everyday life. So don't let Google do that work for you. Try to really think about a connection between one of the poems that we read here and a song that you know and that you like. It doesn't need to be a contemporary one necessarily. It could be one from the good old days if you happen to have those, like some of us do. And so you might start with a fairly general thematic connection, or maybe it's just like the tone that you think is sort of similar, and that's a good place to start. But then we want to take our comparative analysis a little bit deeper. So I'm going to ask you to think in terms of a pretty traditional kind of essay. So we want an introduction piece where you talk about what are the pieces that you're discussing, the poem, the song, who are the authors, like what some of the context maybe, where they come from. Is this song from an album? Was it famous? Did it win awards? Whatever. Is it from a genre, right, of music? So that's an introduction, and then of course it lays out the fairly general comparison. Maybe it's a thematic thing, maybe it's the tone, maybe it's a certain style, whatever it is. And then you want to develop at least 3 points of comparison. So if you picked one of the poems and decided that love was the theme, pretty common, right? You could pick, you know, from a million different songs where love is the theme. So that's really, though, a super generic, like, topical connection. We want to drill much further down to find particular, like, phrases or maybe images that are the same, like actual words that are, if they're not identical between the two pieces, they're really, really similar. So don't just stay reiterating the really, really broad idea that you might start with. That's okay. But we want to get beyond that in the 3 points of comparison that we develop. Again, this is all talked about in the unit itself, so you can see it here as well. So the one wrinkle then is we're dealing with poetry as a text, but also with music, or maybe more specifically lyrics. But when you deal with music these days, you know, you often have like a whole visual component that goes with it. Maybe it's an official video, or just an artist who has a particular like persona and style that he or she might exist in. So we're going to talk about these two texts, quote unquote, but don't be afraid to use some of that material that's not really just the words on the page. Maybe the the presentation, the video, the whole persona idea might fit with some of what you want to talk about as well. So the text the poem is text, but also the music or the lyric is text. That's one kind of non-traditional approach that we're taking. And then the other, much more immediate one, is that we're not going to write a whole essay. We've done that too many times, I think, in our educational careers. I'm going to invite you, or require you, I guess, to do a video essay, which might sound a lot more sophisticated as far as the technology and production than it really is. There's lots of tools that you can use to do screen capture. You can be on camera like I am right now, but if that makes you uncomfortable, or you just feel like, yeah, you could do it that way, but it actually makes more sense to capture my screen for this particular project because then I could show different things, you could totally do that too. Get creative with the visual part of it. Try not to just have one static thing for the whole time that you're talking and recording your audio. Again, there's lots of free screen capture tools depending on what kind of device and operating system. There's lots of different, options out there. So that's why I don't kind of like require you to use a particular one, because there might be a better one that you use that I don't know about, or it's hard to say generically across all different types of computer device and platform. I think it's easiest though once you have that video file, unless you already use a streaming service like Vimeo or there's a few other ones, but clearly YouTube is going to be the most obvious place to put that video. Because we have Google accounts, you have access to YouTube. That's a Google product, even if you never used it before, so just use your Google credential to sign into it. Upload your video. I think there's even a way to record in YouTube. I don't know if it allows you to do screen capture, but it's not something I know very much about, so that's an option you could pursue if you wanted to. So once you have your video, load it into YouTube, and then that will let you work with it for the next sort of piece of what we do in our class, again, building out the portfolio so that our portfolio grows with us as we complete stuff for our class. So if the whole notion of the video essay from a technical standpoint is something that's really new to you and you're a little challenged by it, maybe a little intimidated, my guess is most people get the comparative approach that we're doing, but maybe the technical side is a little more intimidating. Be in touch with me early so that we can walk through some possibilities. Don't leave it until the night before and then you're getting frustrated because whatever technology you've stumbled into isn't working the way that you thought it would or that you wanted it to, or whatever. So again, basically our approach is fairly traditional. Comparative analysis of the poem, and then we're going to choose a song. But the way that we're doing that is a little non-traditional. And there's some, reasons behind why I'm asking you to do it as a video essay. A little less formal, maybe not as scripted or unscripted and off the cuff as what I'm doing right now. But the idea of just like speaking through an idea is really important. But it's also just really cool in our online setting to ideally or potentially see people like this, or even just hear them talking to us, right? Instead of just reading a bunch of kind of generic text on a page. So there are like really, I think, valid reasons for doing it this way and not just typing a bunch of paragraphs and shooting it off into the interweb somewhere. All right, so I'm going to keep this one super short because you're just staring at me and I'm actually looking at our course. But jump into Unit 5 then, take some time to obviously read the poems, but read the assignment. And even if you haven't chosen like a comparison yet, if you're a little bit challenged with the whole how do I do a video essay, like how do I use YouTube, etc., be in touch with me soon and we can figure that part out even in advance of you actually picking a topic to work on. Okay, so I'm signing off for now, and I will check in with everybody again pretty soon.